Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. We have just come from the Peace Palace at the conclusion of the opening and plenary sessions of the 21st ASEAN Summit and the signing of the ASEAN Declaration on Human Rights. Secretary Almendras and I would like to give you the highlights of what has transpired thus far, after which you may wish to ask your questions. Okay. At the opening session, the chairman of the ASEAN, Prime Minister Hun Sen, affirmed the ASEAN's 6-point principles. Well, he said that there is a need to enhance ASEAN centrality and international status, especially in ensuring peace, security, and development in the region. So he referred to the Phnom Penh agenda that was adopted in April 2012 during the 20th summit, referring to a regional architecture in terms of peace and security in the region. And the essential elements of that framework would be the 6-point principles and also the DOC, the Declaration on the Code of Conduct, which should lead to the Declaration on a Code of Conduct for the South China Sea. And this is all in keeping with the theme of ASEAN, which is one community and one destiny. In the plenary session that followed the opening session, these principles were reiterated by the chairman of the summit, Prime Minister Hun Sen, and individual heads of states and government, including President Aquino, made their individual specific interventions. Allow me to read the specific paragraph of President's statement. He said, and I quote, "I wish to reiterate the need for maritime security and cooperation in ensuring freedom of navigation, in combating piracy, and in maintaining peace and stability in our region. The ASEAN 6-point principles on the South China Sea manifest our collective vision, a vision founded on the principle of centrality. My country supports its effective implementation, which will highlight the fruits of constructive dialogue, strengthen our resolve, and reaffirm our respect for international law, such as the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS." The second point in the President's statement was to welcome the adoption of the ASEAN Human Rights Declaration, which, as I pointed out earlier, was signed after the conclusion of the plenary session. And this declaration includes instruments for the protection and promotion of rights of migrant workers and their families and for combating trafficking in persons. You will appreciate that this is a vital and essential concern, a priority of our government, considering the significant numbers of overseas Filipino workers and migrant workers. And he also advocated for the further promotion of the 2013 ASEAN SME Year. Now, after President Aquino, the other heads of state also spoke up, and specifically the points that were emphasized by Chairman Hun Sen, as I mentioned earlier, on the 6-point principles and the Declaration on the Code of Conduct, and which were emphasized in President Aquino's intervention, were affirmed by Indonesian President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono. He said we should maintain calm and exercise self-restraint, and also by the Vietnamese Prime Minister, who also reiterated the significance of the 6 points, the DOC and the Code of Conduct, in ensuring maritime security and safety. And the last to speak up was Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong of Singapore, who said that we should abide by the 6-point principles and the Declaration, the Code of Conduct, exercise maximum restraint and refrain from provocative actions, and initiate discussions with China on the Code of Conduct. Because he said that ASEAN needs to be able to speak up not to take side on merits, to be neutral, forward, and forward-looking. So those are the highlights of the opening and plenary sessions. You may wish to ask questions. Secretary Almendras will also be available to answer your questions.
Sir, kumusta po si Phnom ngayon? Kasi may sakit po yata siya.
The President is in good spirits. He's very energetic. He's animated by the significance of his participation in this vital forum.
The President made sure that he was on time in his medication. Like all of you know, when you have a flu, there's a certain cycle to the medication. So he woke up well this morning, and so he's definitely feeling. No, I think the will and the intent to be here is driving the ano po. President spent most of the yesterday in Malacanang. I think after the third interview niya sa Supreme Court, medyo he started feeling bad, and that's when he decided to call in the private physician who came over and sort of checked him out. And then he finished the last three. I think he finished the last one about 5:15, when he decided na ituloy. I think the President's decision to come forward, I know some people are asking why is he forcing it. The President has 10 opportunities to speak in this forum. You have 2 plenaries, you have 2 retreats, you have 6 bilats or ASEAN specific, and in each of those, the President, the Cabinet and the President prepared statements relative to each of the forums or the people that they'll be talking with. This is one of the primary considerations why the President really decided to come over. It's a rare opportunity to participate in these dialogues, and we do have something to say in most of them. In the plenary, the President decided to speak on 3 or 4 items. I think the major one was really on the centrality of ASEAN, the role of peaceful rule of the way we do things. Copies of the President's statement are going to be released to all of you. I'd encourage that you study the tone of the statement more than just the content. A lot of effort was put in place on the tone because we did not want to be. He wanted to make sure that he said things correctly. I think we can actually say that the spirit of this particular ASEAN conference started off on a very good footing, with Prime Minister Hun Sen actually declaring upfront the common things about ASEAN, including the issues in South China Sea, contrary to what happened in the past. So I think the nice thing about this morning was the discussion started on the right footing and the follow-through. The second significant thing is really the human rights thing. The main input of the Philippines was really along the lines of migrant workers, because tayo po yung, together with Indonesia, tayo po yung maraming migrant workers. Ang significance po nun ay napakaganda na nagkasundo so that, whether you're in Singapore or you're in Bangkok, if you're a Filipino, you are assured that your rights will be respected by the host country, which is really critical because this declaration actually has 12 points more than the International Declaration of Human Rights. So it's an improvement. Well, ASEAN would like to claim that it is an improvement over the international version.
Sir, yung bilateral meetings with what countries?
No, this is the bilateral meetings with the Philippines will only be with Vietnam. There's a pull aside this afternoon at 2:30, and at 7:15 tonight there's an India. It's quite late, but India's been quite persistent in requesting for that bilat. The dialogues is between ASEAN and a specific country, like ASEAN China, ASEAN Japan, ASEAN USA. So those are the 10. That forms part of the 10 opportunities to speak. I guess before we left Malacanang yesterday, I was asking the President about whether he will be participating in all of the sub meetings and the groups, and his decision was kung kakayanin, he would like to do all of it. Yesterday, actually, the discussion was at about 3 o'clock, I think 3:15. I was asking him. He says, kung matapos ko tong 6 na to, siguro naman kaya ko bumiyahe. So that was one of the criteria he decided on.
Secretary,
Yes.
you mentioned that the Philippines put great care in setting the tone with
No,
the-
I said the Philippines took great care in the statement of the President
the tone
to
of the
adhere to the
president's
tone of
statement,
the way.
Yes. It was a very deliberate, was it a deliberate action to avoid what happened in July?
I think everyone who came here wanted to avoid that. Secretary Coloma read to you a portion of the reason why I mentioned what Secretary Coloma read to you a paragraph of the President's statement. There are two very important paragraphs that came before that, which is the discussion about why we're here and the point about coming to resolve it, and that there is a framework to discuss certain things. So, kumbaga, there was a segue into that particular paragraph, and there was a President established before he said those things in a very clear way that we're here to frame it in a there is a framework to discuss these things po.
Did the visit of Vice Minister Fu Ying to Manila a few weeks ago also influence the Philippines' decision to come on, a bit softer this time, at least with regards to the tone of the statement?
I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll have to be very careful. That is a statement that will be most aptly answered by the DFA. All I can say is that meeting with Vice Minister Fu was equally as productive. After that, we did go to Laos, to Vientiane, to the ASEM, and there were some discussions there also. I think the whole spirit about it is that ASEAN wants to come out in a unified way. The centrality of ASEAN is to be celebrated in this forum, and this is exactly what's happening. We are being good citizens of the ASEAN by making sure that we will be, we will do what we can in making sure that the discussions happen as productively as could possibly happen.
Sir, does that mean